to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. You're welcome. Roll call, please.
Deputy Mayor McIntosh?
Here.
Councilwoman Martin?
Here.
Councilman Slackton?
Here.
Mayor Nelson? Councilman Simmons?
Here.
Councilwoman Simons?
Good morning here.
Councilman Longcart?
Here. Good morning, everybody. This is a more casual meeting than usual, and I'd like to start off a little differently by introducing some of our esteemed guests out in the audience. We have a new member of Carl's Kingdom. Carl's Kingdom? Oh.
Wow.
Brad Browning. Brad, would you please stand
Brad
and
Browning, no
let everybody
kidding.
see you are? Brad is with our Public Works Department. Welcome, Brad. And the always esteemed, the Honorable Richard Ferreira, previous councilman in District 1. Welcome, Richard.
Hi, Richard.
And many of you may not know this person, but Darla Letourneau is the chair of Bike Walk Lee. Darla, thank you for being here today and helping us always with sustainability. Thank you very much. And state chairman of the League of Women Voters, we have Claire Ann Graham out there. Claire, wave to the audience for us. Yeah, good. And our partners in sustainability, we have two members from BSU here today, Mike Liggins, the maintenance and engineering director, and Mary Mima back there in the back. So thank you very much for being here. First thing on the agenda is public comment. Do we have anyone who wants to make a comment about today's workshop, please? Thank you. And just for the record, Darla.
I'm Darla Letourneau with Bike Walk Lee, and it's good to be here this morning. Some of you know me from the MPO meeting. Bike Walk Lee, just for those of you who aren't familiar, is a volunteer community coalition working to complete the streets of Lee County. And what that means is that the streets are designed, built, constructed, maintained for safe and convenient travel for all road users. It's really a different way of thinking about transportation, and it provides a really good framework for the culture change that's needed, whether it's sustainability or complete streets and overall transportation, if we want to have a multimodal transportation system and livable communities. We've partnered with 50 community stakeholder organizations who want to improve the quality of life and mobility in Lee County. We're really proud of all the stakeholders that are part of our coalition, from Healthy Leave Coalition, Safety and Injury Prevention Groups, AARP of Florida, FGCU, lots of citizens and community groups, planning panels around the county, environmental groups, planners, sustainable community groups, businesses, etc. There's been a lot of progress made in the last 4 years, and before I talk about that, I really want to, say I'm here in support of the sustainability approach that the city is considering. I think that Bonita is doing many things right, and I'm really impressed with your efforts, a sustained, organized way to kind of make the community economically viable and a really great place to live. And I think this is just another way of stepping up the game. And I was honored to be at the bike summit that the Secretary of Transportation, Ray LaHood, held in Tampa on April 11th. And one of the very impressive speakers was the mayor of Tampa, Bob Bunkhorn. And he really talked about all the cities around the country are in competition with each other for these intellectual capital workers, people who can be anywhere, and they're looking for livable communities. And he's convinced that focusing on making Tampa, or whatever community, bikeable, walkable, transit-oriented is what's going to attract and keep those workers. So it is really a competitive process, and I think you've approached it that way, which I think is very good. There's also been a lot of progress in the county, and there have been a couple of tools that have allowed that. One was the bike ped master plan that was done by the MPO, and all the jurisdictions around the county are now working on implementing. The second, we're working right now on the bike ped safety action plan to deal with the totally unacceptable high fatality and injury rates we have for pedestrians and cyclists around the county. And that action plan will give us a framework for moving forward on those issues. I'm also pleased to see that you have established your first bike ped advisory committee that is meeting tonight, which is great. So all these things kind of come together, and one of the things that was said at the MPO meeting on Friday was a very interesting discussion about the Tampa Summit, complete streets, and sustainability. And Councilman Flanders made a comment, I think it'd be apropos to this discussion today. He said, I've been participating in the county's sustainability committee meetings in the last year, and he said it's really a great way to look comprehensively. You cover everything. He said, I'm learning so much. He says, I go to all the meetings. It's amazing. He doesn't have to. And I think that it was a testament to what's happening in the county that you're about to become a part of. And there's a lot of synergy, a lot of things to build on from what the county's doing. And Jen Hagan is a member of that committee, and four of our Bike Walk Lead members are participating in some role on that committee. So Complete Streets is really a good place to start for sustainability, and Tessa Lesage, the director, talks about that a lot because it's a microcosm of sustainability. You're trying to change the culture in some ways. You're breaking down organizational barriers. You're looking at new ways of thinking and doing business, and you're taking a holistic approach. Another reason why it's a good
Carla,
place.
I'm going to have to ask you to wrap up.
Oh,
I'm sorry.
Sorry.
Thank you.
I have too much to say on this
That's
topic.
okay.
Another good reason to start there is the greenhouse gases in Lee County are mostly from autos, and we are the 5th worst in the country from that. So that's another incentive to kind of take a sustainability approach. I'm sorry for how
Well, that's
long
all
this-
right.
Okay, thank you.
I'm new at this, and I didn't put your light on, so thank you. Thanks very much. Any other public comment? I am doing a different way.
That's right.
Put the light on this guy.
Okay.
Here comes the light, believe me.
Yeah.
Good morning, City Council. I want to ditto what
Your name,
the
please?
previous speaker, Richard
please.
Ferreira, Bonita Springs, for the record. I want to ditto what the previous speaker said about Bonita. I think it's moving in the right direction. I want to commend the City Council for thinking out of the box. And what I'm going to say right now is simply a statement, what I think is sustainability for the future, that is the maintenance and prolonged sustainability of what Bonita will be in 5 years or 10 years. And I think we're making the right plans right now to do it. I just want to read a short statement that I wrote. And this is about the allowable use. And I want to say this emphatically, that it's not the city's responsibility to open up a business. But the allowable use of solar farms in the DRGR. Now, we're about to rezone authority. We have rezoning authority in a 3,000 acre area of East Bonita, environmentally sensitive area. Some parts of the DRGR, as you know, needs environmental protection. Some of it needs to be developed because it's environmentally inferior. So the consulting firm that was hired to pancake all the studies that we spent hundreds of thousands of dollars in the past to try to come up with answers is hopefully going to look at some of the areas that can be, we can increase the density and still have good sustainability for the future for our environment. Just let me read a quick statement and I'll cut it short.
No, please.
The first thing that most people feel when you walk out the door on your face is the heat from the sun. It is called solar energy. It is free, it's dependable, it's predictable, and will outlast most of our generations. It is free, but the problem is the cost of converting that free energy to usable energy is where the problem lies. Solar energy has made the transition for what could be compared to the electric vacuum tube, to the transistor, to the microchip. The cost of solar production has dropped 80% in 20 years. That's the upside. The downside is cultural inertia and lobbying efforts by utility companies to maintain the status quo by staying with traditional energies such as gas, coal, and nuclear. Now, we're going to need all three. Well, at least we're going to need gas and nuclear. Solar energy in itself isn't going to sustain our energy needs for the future. Too bad, because some of it has a downside that could really raise havoc with the long-term environment. The city of Bonita is embarking on rezoning of its control of almost 5,000 or 3,000 acres of water-sensitive land. We hope that the city council will consider the allowable use of investing companies to come in and enhance the solar energy capability. And this is the Sunshine State. So let us put our step in the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman. Any other public comment?
Good morning, Steve, Council. Mike Liggins with Bonita Springs Utilities. We've been participating in the city's sustainability workshops. We see the value of the program. We see the value of assessing the current efforts, setting a bar, and then moving forward with a clearinghouse of demonstrated and quantifiable results. So thank you for considering this, and we look forward to your decision.
Thank you. Any other public comment on the workshop? Seeing none, let's go to the agenda, and we're now ready for the presentation. Thank you.
Good morning.
Good morning.
So excited to be here.
So were we.
For the record, Jennifer Dufala-Hagen with Community Development. I have been one of the planners within the city looking at promoting sustainability and implementing that practice within Bonita. I also am joined here today by Krista Fogo. Fogo, I said it right, yes. She has been very instrumental in helping me with this, because among all of my other duties that I have in a daily responsibility, obviously sustainability is one of my passions. However, it's hard to make everything happen and fit into one day. So I have been leaning very heavily on Krista. Krista is a graduate student with Florida Gulf Coast, and she's looking to go into the public sector or some kind of public planning. She hasn't decided yet. We're trying to obviously call her to our side, but that will be ultimately up to her. So just want to say again, thank you very much. She helped put together most of this presentation for me and has been with me along the way. So thank you, Krista. Today is also Earth Day, so even though this presentation, this workshop has been delayed many times for very valid reasons, it is very nice that it does fall on Earth Day, so we do celebrate that. And as we celebrate Earth Day today, it is also important to recognize that the role that the local government has directly on impacting a community's livability, our economic vitality, as well as our preservation and conservation of natural resources. So that is the heart of what Earth Day is about. So I celebrate that today with you all as we look forward to a sustainable Bonita. Again, just to capture what we're here, today is a follow-up workshop. It's in accordance with a strategic objective number 4, which was to establish a sustainability policy in one way or another. So just to remind you why we are here today. This did come out of a 2011 presentation that we did. Actually, I believe it was in April of 2011, so 2 years later, we're back looking at that. But in the meantime, good things have happened. We have a lot of best practices that we are currently implementing within the city already. And one of the biggest developments was the strategic plan objective that I just mentioned. And that was in our, I think it started off in our 2012, right, Carl? Yes. So one of the metrics of measuring that objective was to have this workshop today. So congratulations, we are in the process of completing that. Again, in 2011, we focused on 6 different areas that we felt were components of a sustainable Bonita. And this strategic plan objective directs us to review, enact, implement, and also look at additional measures that would maintain and enhance our current quality of life in Bonita for our grandchildren, our children, and their children. So again, staff is looking to council on how to direct us and how you wish to move forward towards the development of sustainability policy. So today's workshop is the first step in that. Again, just to rebrief you, in 2011, we looked at 6 components. The first 5 were energy optimization, transportation, land use, the environment, and conservation. And at the crux of all of that, we felt that green government was our first step. And so we are looking at green government as central to this because the efficient and internal operations of our mode of operation here within the Bonita is to lead to high performance. We feel that high performing cities are vital as we move forwards towards implementation. Just to refresh us all, when you talk about sustainability and you start to enter different circles, all these circles have a different definition of what sustainability means. So it becomes very confusing for this general word. What are we talking about? Well, it depends on who you're talking to on the answer that you would get. So I just always like to bring it back to the root of the word. When you break it down to the 2 roots, it's really basic. Again, sustain means to keep in existence or maintain, to prolong. Ability is, again, about having sufficient power, skill, and resources to accomplish something. If you look at Webster's dictionary, it basically says that the definition is of, relating to, or being a method of harvesting or using a resource so that that resource is not depleted for future use or it's permanently damaged. On the street, most people think that sustainability is about meeting the needs of the present without compromising the needs of the future. So why sustainability for the city? What difference does it make? How would we use that? Well, the big thing that I want to focus on here in Bonita Springs is that we need to use sustainability as a way to demonstrate our leadership and to show our forward thinking. This is what we are here to do. We want to ensure positive development and livability for our citizens, and we also want it to give us, we need to use sustainability as a way to give us competitive advantage and to create a diverse economy. And basically for the things that Darla was talking about, these are the things, these are the practices that can draw future citizens, future businesses, that would allow us to grow in a positive way. Again, what we're really looking at as using sustainability as a practice is to develop high performance and value. Again, that is the crux of sustainability. And how does that look when you look at sustainability? What does that mean? Well, if you're looking through an environmental lens, it's basically maintaining and enhancing our environment. We want to conserve what we currently have, why people live here, our beautiful rivers, our beautiful beaches, our small town charm. We want to educate people about the ecological and the public health of the conditions that are out there. And we want to be able to have these available for our children and their children. It's one of our biggest assets here in Bonita is our environmental aspects. And we need to make sure that we not only conserve those, but manage them in an appropriate way. If you look at it from an economic viability lens, this again is we want the development of economically viable solutions that support a sustainable, competitive, and diverse economy through initiatives such as small business utilization and community revitalization for present and future. That right there basically states that we are looking at improving and revitalizing our downtown area, and that's why I didn't feel so slated when this workshop kept getting pushed back, because that was something that we were also looking at, was how do we revamp Old 41 and make it vibrant. And we also want to develop economic incentives as well as create options for people to bring their businesses here and to keep our folks here. So that is another lens that you must look at when we discuss sustainability. And the third lens is social values. Again, this is about maintaining our small town charm. It's about enhancing our quality of life. And it's about getting our community engaged and our citizens active and engaged in this sustainability policy with us. We want them to help drive us. We want them to educate us. We want them to be part of the process. So again, we want to do this in an innovative and sustainable way. We want to have solutions that support our community and enhance it. So again, ultimately, when you look at these three tiers of sustainability, it's really about saving money, it's about reducing impact, and it's about improving and maintaining our quality of life. So if you have these practices and we're very innovative, what does that look like? If we are going to be a high-performing city, and that's what we ultimately want to be, some of the characteristics of that, if you look in an economic lens, again, the three spheres of sustainability are economy, environment, as well as social. So in the economic, oh my gosh, economic sphere.
Sounds like rhymes with.
Yes, let's see how many times we can say it quickly and then backwards. Basically, again, we're looking at cost-effective solutions and services. We want to be accountable. We want our citizens to be able to look at what we're doing and say, I believe in that, I know what they're doing, I trust them. And we also do that through transparency. We want to make sure that this whole process is available so anybody can look at it and say, I get it. And we want to show the value. We want to show that we are saving money to do more with less, basically. Again, the social lens is about leadership. We want to show our forward leadership. I think we're starting to do that, and I'm so proud of you all for that. We want to show our regional coordination. We've been doing that, especially with your recent adoption or agreement to move forward with a letter of support for Lee County and them putting together a PACE program called LEAF. So there's many ways through our interlocal agreements that we have with Bonita Fire, Bonita Springs Utilities, that we are meeting these collaborative things that we're doing here. And also we want to demonstrate that we are a high-performing city and that we're accessible. We want our citizens to know that we are just a phone call away or a walk in our door, come see us. We are here. We want to work for you. We want to improve this. We are here to improve your life. And also environmental, again, we're looking at, this is the easy part. I mean, this is what you hear a lot. And most people link sustainability with the bugs and bunnies is what I like to call it. But really, I mean, you're looking at conserving resources, you're looking about optimizing energy, you're looking about reducing our overall impact, and green procurement, I'm not sure if you're familiar with that, but it just means that you're looking at the environmental impact of the items or the materials that we use, whether it be cleaners, whether it be the product that we select as far as carpeting or how we use our paint inside, just how it impacts the environment or how it impacts our health. So what value do we get out of having these characteristics? From an economic, I can't say it, value, we're looking at catalyzing growth, we're looking at achieving fiscal stability. We're looking from a social lens, we're looking about building and maintaining livable communities. We're looking to develop our workforce. You guys have done some great incentives to start that economic development downtown, and so this is part of that process. And from the environmental perspective, we're looking to advance stewardship and also reduce our footprint. So again, you can start to see how sustainability brings value to the city since it balances these three aspects. And it also fosters an integrated approach that optimizes our operation, maintains our city quality of life, and it grows the local economy. So I keep using these spheres because one of the things that is at the foundation of sustainability is this theory called the triple bottom line. And I don't know if any of you are familiar with that or may have heard of it, but basically what it means is it's a framework for measuring performance. And the thing that makes this different than other frameworks that you may use in a business setting is that it includes looking at going beyond financial performance. We're starting to look at including environmental and social performance in our overview of how we operate. But it can be very difficult to assign and to figure out how to measure social and environmental performance. It's not something that we're good at. We have baselines when we look at our economics. We have a great financial department here that can tell us up and down how we're doing economically. But it is very difficult to capture and quantify environmental and social performance when it's not something in the past that we have done. So that is what this theory does exactly. And it looks at basically focusing on how these three interrelate, and we start to base all of our decisions on what is the economic impact, what is the social impact, and what is the environmental impact of everything that we're doing. So it becomes part of our fundamental considerations. And it also is a very important tool that is starting to become very prominent as a way to measure sustainability success. So as we continue to develop and implement new practices, we want to be able to know, we want people to know what we're doing, and we want to be able to translate that. So using a theory like this is a key that we can start taking advantage of. So as we move forward with sustainability and looking and defining what it's going to be for Bonita Springs, we're looking at we're moving forward to implementing sustainability, but we need a framework to measure that. And the nice thing about the bottom line, the triple bottom line, is that it does help manage our efforts and our progress. So with that in consideration, one of the big things that we're recommending today that staff feels is important is to pursue some kind of voluntary rating system framework that would help to evaluate what we're currently doing, quantify our sustainability efforts, and allow us to have that accountability and that transparency that we really need. So moving forward, again, we looked at, in 2011, we felt there were 6 components to a sustainable Bonita: energy optimization, transportation, land use, environment, conservation. And you can see how these are cyclical. We're not looking in a linear way anymore. We really need to see the cause and effect relationship that all of these have on it. And it's my belief that it really does start with us. So this leads back to these focus areas, and that green government, our internal operations, is front and center because we need to focus on these and operating and optimizing our internal operations first as we start to look at this. So as an example of that, I just wanted to point out a couple examples that we are doing that many people think it's a great idea, but they may not see why it's such a great idea unless you look at it through the triple bottom line lens. So some of the examples that I have are in-house. We had many examples, but I wanted to focus on a couple really concrete ones that are very visible to the public right now that we can analyze. So the first one I'm going to talk about is community development. Again, that's where I come from. That's where I work every day. It's what I'm most comfortable with. So that's where I'm going to start. The first one is our public-private partnership. You all know that Carl is very supportive of this. This is something that we have vocalized throughout the region. We've gotten a lot of recognition for that. And it's not only with CH2M Hill. I mean, it's also with Bonita Fire. It's with Bonita Springs Utilities. But one of our biggest, spotlights has been our relationship with CH and the city in order to offer our community development services. So we have fine-tuned those services, and with Carl's help, we have basically synthesized a lot of our old operations and made them more efficient, more streamlined, and definitely the public and our partners are benefiting from that. So, and I would have to say that our overall reasoning for this is because on the CH side, we are very comfortable with utilizing a private sector framework. That's how we work. We know that we have to do a lot. We have to do it as efficient as possible, and our customer service is number one. And we also are very goal-driven on CH's side in regards to sustainability and efficiency and forward thinking. So it's something that's in the core of our philosophy, and we want to be able to transfer that to you and also to the city of Bonita. So one of the things that we implemented from day one were our pre-application meetings. Those interdepartmental pre-application meetings bring together Bonita Fire, BSU, Community Development, our city architect, which increases not only the review efficiency of these applications, but it allows our clients and our customers to come in with a proposed objective, an application that they're looking to develop, and they get everybody's feedback at one table so they can walk out and know exactly what they need to do. So when they turn those applications in, they're concise, they're sufficient from almost the minute they cross our desk, and we're already ready to expedite the review. So we can have our turnaround time much quicker with less requests for additional information and delayed time for our customers, and that's huge. And we've been receiving lots of good feedback in regards to that. Another thing that we've implemented this year is our one-stop permitting. Again, this is an excellent opportunity for our customers to be able to come to one place, submit multiple permits, which allows them to save on their total vehicle miles traveled. It also allows them to save on their time from going between community development, Bonita Fire, Bonita Springs Utilities, so they are able to maximize their time for these applications, which saves time, dollars, and also gets these cars off the street. So that is an excellent movement in the right direction. Another thing that we have done that has tremendous impact, but is kind of behind the scenes, is our software conversion that we did last year to a product called InterGov. And basically what this has allowed us to do is get 3 different departments. We now have community development, code enforcement, as well as our financial department using the same software. That means that not only do we no longer need to pick up the phone as much and say, what the heck's going on with X, Y, and Z? We can see it, it's right within our desktop. But another nice thing is it allows for live action as far as our inspectors. When they go out into the field, they are able to upload any kind of inspections, whether they've passed or failed. It's immediate. We in the office can see it before they've even gotten back into their truck. And soon it's going to be available for the public to have that immediate response as far as being able to see where their permit is in the process. So the InterGov, again, allows for better communication, efficiency, and transparency to not only internal but external viewers. And one of the last things that's very important is our multi-certified inspectors. We now have inspectors that can go out and do plumbing, trade, mechanical, and framework inspections, whatever you may need. You may have in the past had to call 3 or 4 inspections in. Now you can call one inspector. They can do it all. They pass or fail you. They direct you whatever you need to do, and it happens at the same time. And they will pass you, give you your receipt right there on site, and leave, and it's already in the computer. That's huge. That has expedited the building permit process much, very, very much. And again, that goes back to the automated permitting software that I've already briefly kind of touched on. So those are the examples. Now, if you step back and say, okay, how do we apply the triple bottom line to this? It's pretty easy. You break down, again, what are the environmental, the social, and the economic examples of these best practices that we're doing. First and foremost, in the environment, by using some of these, we're reducing the total vehicle miles traveled. So someone who may have had to travel between 3 different municipalities can travel just to community development. So that, again, saves lots of times and gas. And it also allows our inspectors to work completely interactive in the field. So they're not having to come back and forth all the time and log all of their entries or in their inspections in. They can do it remotely, which expedites. Also, it reduces paper. Now they are not having to print out reports. In the morning last year, before we went to our InterGov software, their inspectors would have to print out over 50 to 60 pages for each report and each inspection that they were doing. Now that report is not needed. It's all on their laptop. They can go out. So we calculated last year internally in our office, we saved over 90 pounds of paper just by going to that InterGov software. So that's pretty good. It's way good. It's not just pretty, it's excellent. And it also reduces emissions when we're talking about gas in the vehicles. From a social lens, again, we've talked about this. It increases review efficiency not only internally, but it saves times for our applicants. It simplifies the permit process, it expedites service, and it reduces travel time. From an economic perspective, it saves money on the time and gas for our customers as well as our staff and our inspectors, and it does show the accountability because all of this, again, is automated and it's very transparent to where you may be in the permitting process, so it is available online. So the greater accessibility equals the transparency, which again comes back to that high performance city and value. Another example that we have is through the Parks and Rec department. And a year ago, council had voted to do a conversion for the pool. And I don't know if you guys have had a chance for Nicole to demonstrate the benefits of that yet, but she was able to give me the numbers, so I'm going to steal her thunder and just tell you how great of a recommendation that was and how proud you should be for that conversion, because when you did vote to do the conversion, and again, just to back up for those who aren't familiar with that, the chlorine generator that is now being used over at the pool sanitizes the pool using salt rather than chlorine. You're still getting chlorine as an end product, but it's a much softer chlorine, and it's used through electrolysis. So it's not adding bags and bags and bags of chlorine. You're using salt to cleanse the pool. So what do you get out of that? Environmentally, you're reducing the potential chlorine compounds to the atmosphere. You're contributing to you're not contributing to global warming or any of the depletion of the ozone layer and all of those things that come along with using toxic chemicals. Socially, it's less exposure to chemicals, not only for the lifeguards that used to have to administer that chlorine, but also for our patrons that are in the pool, because there's not as much irritation to the skin, the eyes, etc. And it makes our swimsuits last longer, which, that is a big benefit to the lifeguards who are there all day, and it's an added savings. And from an economic perspective, it prolongs the life of the equipment, overall maintenance cost, and not only that, but the upfront installation cost that the system did cost in the beginning was almost $30,000. On an average month, you were spending about $650, $700 in chlorine. Today, you are spending $70 in salt a month. So that gives you about an average saving of $580. It gives you a yearly savings of $7,000. So right there, you can see how that example means that savings in chlorine is allowing that unit to pay for itself within less than 4 years. So that's a great example about how looking at some of these practices saves money in the long run. So again, these examples basically demonstrate that sustainability comes through how these three spheres interact. It's called the sweet spot, is what in the industry we refer to it as, but it's really the common ground where all these three spheres interact. And it's within this sweet spot where we begin to identify solutions that align how we optimize our city operations while maintaining our economic, social, and environmental goals. This leads to enhanced operational efficiency, transparency, integration, regional objectives and coordination, accountability, and forward thinking. And something that is really being identified right now in a lot of the different sectors that are really looking at sustainability through a pretty small lens are that we are no longer just looking at how can we fix what we've done so far and make it better, but it moves more into, instead of being in a reactive position, we want to be proactive. And so sustainability is really shifting from just managing to more directing the engineering of the future, the pre-planning, and how can we manage our future to be better instead of just reacting to the bad stuff we've already done in the past. How can we take that information, move it, and plan for a better future? And again, one of the biggest things I think are the partnerships that we have within Bonita to help get to that. So you can see how sustainability becomes a practice. It's allowing us to develop a culture of sustainability. It becomes a new way of operating, a more efficient, a more valuable way of operating. And the biggest key that will contribute to our success is the data management. We do it. We know how to do it from a financial perspective. We've got a great department that in finance that helps us lead the way in that. But in terms of sustainability, we really need a framework, some metrics, and some indicators to assess and rate where we currently are and where we can go from here. So, how do you do that? Well, we cannot manage what we do not measure. So our biggest challenge today is determining a baseline. We need to see where we're at to determine where we're going and conduct an assessment. We need to determine what's been done, what's currently being done, some of the best practices I exemplified, and what needs to be done in the future. So, hold on, let me go back to this. Most of you might say, is there an app for that? No, but there is hope. Staff recommends using the Florida Green Building Coalition's Green City designation to develop a baseline to set targets and monitor progress. Again, it's not an app on your iPad, but it is a framework that was created about 10 years ago now, and it would really help us develop a baseline to measure and to go forward. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Krista. Krista is going to present to you the Florida Green Building Coalition's program for Green City designation, and then I'll be back to join you in a minute.
Thank you.
My name's Krista. I'm a grad student at FGCU, and I've been working with Jen Hagan,
Last name too, please. for the
Fogo,
record.
F-O-G-O. And she gives me far too much credit, but I appreciate it. So the Florida Green Building Coalition was created by local governments for local governments, and it's a way to assess what's being done and what can be done in a sustainable way. It provides examples and opportunities for the city of Bonita Springs, and it's organized in a way that that government is organized, the functions of government. So there's no need to create a new framework. It's also consistent with the comp plan's vision to be a green city. It establishes higher performance and value by providing a goal to work toward. It provides the framework. It's measurable, and it has a time-certain outcome. As of January 2013, there were roughly 40 cities and counties within Florida that have green local government certification. There's some around our area, Northport, Manatee County, but Bonita Springs would really be the first in our little region to pursue such a goal. So the assessment categories, which are measured, are set up like local government functions. In Florida Green Building Coalition, there's each of the categories, and the ones that are applicable to Bonita Springs, there's criteria within them, and there's points assigned. So the ones that you meet, you get points for. The ones that you don't meet, say there's a category of public utilities, electric utilities. Because the government doesn't provide that function, those criteria within that category are not counted against the city. However, if we partner with BSU and do things together, we would get additional points for innovation. So it's geared toward the city of Bonita Springs in particular. So here's an example of Parks and Recreation, the criteria within that category and the points assigned to it. Maintaining organic community gardens, minimizing chlorine in swimming pools, installing appropriate bicycle security at all amenities. And Bonita Springs is already doing some of these things. The chlorine example that Jen went over, we would get a point for that. Also implementing recycling stations in public parks. We are already doing that. So how does the process work exactly? I'm going to go step by step in the process and what you get out of it. If we get approval, if you direct staff to pursue this standard, we would first designate an office, an individual, or a department to work as the project coordinator. And the project coordinator is the liaison and the link between the local government here and the Florida Green Building Coalition. So they would work together and determine what steps. Once we designate the project coordinator, we would submit a pre-application form, and that's just letting Florida Green Building Coalition know that we're interested. We would become a registered city. At that point, Florida Green Building Coalition appoints a project evaluator on their end, and that's who would work with our project coordinator. Third, we would determine what criteria apply to Bonita Springs. As I mentioned before, some of the categories wouldn't apply to Bonita if we don't provide those functions. So the project coordinator and the project evaluator would work together and to determine which categories apply, and so how many applicable points Bonita would have to meet. Next would be the actual assessment. So the project coordinator would work with all of Bonita Springs departments to determine what's currently being done and what can be done. The project coordinator, once all the departments, bring their reports to her or him or the office, would put together a report saying where we stand and what's currently being done. They would then assemble a meeting with all of the departments and determine what that can be done by working together to address shortcomings or areas that they can improve upon. Once this is done, there's an 18-month period from the time of the application to certification. So within that 18-month period, the assessment would be conducted, and then the project coordinator would assemble and submit the summary to the project evaluator at Florida Green Building Coalition. They would then verify everything, go through the reports, and issue the certification. So depending on the percentage of points you were able to meet and the percentage of points that you actually met is how you get your certification. And it ranges from bronze to platinum. And as you can see before, there's no cities or counties which have gotten platinum as of yet, so we could be the first. You would then receive your certification from Florida Green Building Coalition, and you use the results of that certification and the assessment to determine where you can go, and it provides you that baseline so that you can manage because it's been measured. So the total cost is based on population. It would be $4,000 total. It would also cost staff time, and that would be the project coordinator and also the departments that work together and all of that. And I believe it was estimated that it would be 500 hours total throughout that entire 18-month period. So the outcomes are pretty straightforward. You have the recognition and the certification that comes with the standard. It saves money, time, and resources. It increases accountability and transparency, and it also provides you that baseline and a metric for measuring your future projects. And I will turn it back over to Jen.
Thank you.
So again, the whole point of this is really to find that sweet spot, the sustainability sweet spot. As we move forward in our practices and our philosophies and our goals and our amendments of our comprehensive plan, our land development code in the next few years, we really are looking to meet this sweet spot that will better align our goals with how we implement things. And ultimately, we're looking to protect our natural resources, which is the environmental sphere. We're looking to preserve our quality of life, which is the social sphere. And we're looking to promote fiscal responsibility, which speaks to the economic sphere. So I'm having trouble with that word today. But ultimately, what we're here to ask for is for council to consider to direct staff to pursue the Florida Green Building Coalition Green City designation. And staff is available to answer any questions you may have in that process.
Okay, thank you very much. City Council, questions, discussion? Janet.
I'll be glad to make a comment. I don't have any questions. The presentation is very well done. Thank you so much. I want to thank you for bringing this forward to us. I think it's important, and I think that number one, above all, we need to lead, and we need, if we're going to do this and want this to expand just from what we're doing here at City Hall and within our buildings to our residences and our businesses, then we need to lead by example. So I'm all for this, and I'd like to just say, since I have the mic first, that I think you're the perfect person to be our person to do this because you're so passionate about this. So.
I second it.
So moved.
Thank you.
Yes, Councilwoman Simons.
Thank you. First of all, I want to thank you, Councilman McIntosh, for helping to coordinate this. I want to thank Carl for looking enthusiastic and energetic about this. I want to thank Jen because you did a great presentation, I agree. But, you know, I brought this forward in 2009, and maybe it wasn't understood what the value of this was. We went through the all the things that the city had done up to that point. We did an evaluation, and for some reason, council went, you know, but there wasn't support in the staff. And I want to say that I'm really grateful to you for pointing out how this is actually all part of our government light philosophy.
Absolutely.
This is about efficiency. This is about service, as well as sustainability and the bugs and the bunnies. You know, I come from it from the bugs and the bunnies part, but it also is economically, you save more money, and that's you save more time. Yes, we'll have to put in, as with everything, you know, that's good. You have to put an investment into it. So we're going to put some investment of staff time, and I'm all for this course because, you know, and I'm so glad to see it come forward. Yes, but I think number one, the investment in time will pay off multiple times after we're done with the evaluation. We get the certification. That's all nice certification, but when we find the systems that work in our city to make it better, more efficient, greener, how to involve the public, because we try to do that, but now we'll have a way to measure that performance, and we'll have a way to say, see, government light, it does work, and this is how we're doing it. So when, you know, some people will want to offer some advice and say, well, we could do it better this way. We'll say, well, we're already doing that. Yeah, that component that you added, that's going to make it even better, and we can measure how that would be. So I'm really, really grateful. I'd love to make the motion to say, let's do it, in which I will do that right now.
Okay, thank you.
I'll second.
Second for discussion? Thank you. Yeah. Councilman Simmons.
Yes, thank you very much. Great presentation and great discussion that we had last week, one-on-one. I appreciate that very much. And I've seen some numbers, and I'd like to talk through those a little bit more if we could, and for the benefit of folks at home that might be watching or listening to this subsequently. We saw the price tag of $4,000 and X number of staff hours. Do we have not a one-pager, but can we just kind of talk through those numbers a little bit more?
Let's see if I have it here.
Thank you very much.
I believe that's it. This kind of synthesizes again that the application fee is based on the population. So since we fall with under the 50,000, our application fee is $4,000. Up front, the only cost that we would be required to invest is the $500 deposit fee. And that is to submit the pre-application form, and that fee gets us going as we start to dive into further the criteria that would apply to Bonita. So that holds us, it's a placeholder. And then when we're ready to officially submit our synthesis and our finding, the balance of $3,500 would be due. So again, for us to participate financially, it's a $4,000 check total. And estimated, when we looked at it, and Martha and I looked at it back in 2009, we had estimated some type of coordinator working with all the department heads and the department champions. If the department heads aren't able to do a lot of the work, somebody who would champion those departments and synthesize this information. So we looked over about the 18 months. It would be, give or take, about 500 staff hours. But again, like Martha said, we are looking to synthesize and start these conversations to get the departments furthering these conversations, because Carl has done a great job, and I want to point out too that he has his manager meetings twice a month. So he's really started this process from a high level, and then these meetings then would even go deeper to some of these aspects. So I think it would be more intensive in the beginning, and as we work through this, I think we would really get very efficient at it. So that would be our biggest cost, is the staff time and the $4,000 fee.
Do we know what the staff time calculates out to?
No, because again, everybody, you know, I don't want to say bills because I come from a private sector, but it would be, Carl, maybe you can speak to that.
Well, I think it depends on who the champions are, if the directors are going to be involved, you know, what kind of hourly rate you might assign to each of those hours involved. So I think it's difficult to.
There's a lot of moving pieces, I know that.
Right.
Certainly, we all know that.
And we're just talking the concept at this point, and hopefully going to get council support, and we might be able to bring some of those projections forward to you at a little bit later date, once we settle down and figure out who's going to be doing what. And yes, Jen knows she's been on the hook for some time, that if this went through council, she'd be the person. So.
Right. And we had also talked about the chlorine, saltwater in the pool, and I see there's a calculation there. And that, if we could break that out a little further as well, because,
Absolutely.
yeah, that'd be great.
Yes.
Thank you.
Just real quickly, it kind of begs the question, John, you've looked at this pretty extensively. Can you do this with your staff that you have today, or is that not possible? It's 500 hours over 18 months, as I understood it, which is about 8 weeks a year.
It's close.
Yeah.
And really, based upon the direction of council, will really kind of depend on how this goes. How we proceed, I'd almost like to sit down with Carl to make sure that everybody's on the same page as to who's doing what, not only on our end, but who's going to be working on this from different departments within the city, and how we're going to break those hours out. Depending on how that works out, we may be fine with the existing staff, or we may need fill in gaps in certain places, but at this point, I don't know.
Yeah, that makes me a little more comfortable. When we were talking about 500 hours, I thought that was going to come out of one department. If they
No,
can
sir,
spread
that's,
that.
that's across all
Great.
departments.
That's terrific. Okay, thank you. Councilman Slackton.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Jennifer, outstanding presentation. Also, Krista, thank you very much. It was very nice of you to pitch in there. Jennifer, just going back to the area that I had some experience with a contractor when he, I don't know, it was 2.5 years ago, whatever, put a brand new door in my house, and he had to go get a permit from Fort Myers, and the frustration that he felt. I just think this is wonderful. I'm just curious, is there anything that people have to go to Fort Myers for wherever they go to Fort Myers to get a permit?
I would say 90% of the time, no. And one of the things I forgot to mention is we now at Community Development can process notice of commencements up until about, I would say, 3 or 4 months ago. I can't remember exactly when we implemented Simple File, but Simple File is the technology that allows us to file notices on commencement. They used to have to go to Lee County for that. So the only reason they would have to go up there is if they needed some kind of document, building permit, zoning record that happened prior to 2008 when we were here and opened our doors. That is not available through their Tidemark system. Mostly Lee County has pretty much all of their files available from 2000 and forward. Prior to that, they may have to go up and do a little digging, but otherwise, we really have been able to provide everything to them.
I just think that marvelous, because the frustration I saw in that guy's face, he had to drive up to Fort Myers, and
Yep.
and everything was delayed.
And sometimes it's multiple trips,
Right.
because, if you don't do your homework and don't contact the appropriate staff up there, you could drive up there and they could be at lunch, they could be sick, they may have a meeting, down here, you never know. So it definitely has been a huge time saver. And I do have to also acknowledge the partnership that our department has with Lee County Community Development, because, again, they were your department prior to 2008, and they have been excellent in helping us find those files and working with us in some of the history of some of these projects. So that's, again, another relationship that we definitely continue to foster.
Thank you for a great job. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilman Longcart.
Thank you, Steve. Very good presentation.
Thank you.
It was nice to see you this morning. My question, my question is that, and this is, I don't know, it says page of one set of
Never know what
pages
7
1 through 15. I only have 7. Is because it's paper, trying to save on paper, or?
No, the reason.
You're all.
Yes, you only got every other page, sir. That cut it down by 50%.
The pages 8 through 15 were a lot of policies, how the application worked from a technical side that I didn't think were really applicable to us today, and I'd be happy to provide them to you.
I would like to see them.
Absolutely.
Maybe a better way to do it, just do page 1 through 7, as opposed to saying there's 15, and I wouldn't have to make that statement. But Carl, you're on board with this, right?
Absolutely, sir.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Just a couple comments. I was really pleased to see the green government piece defined as high-performance, value-added city. I think it makes a lot of sense for the folks who are not as attuned to sustainability as what you may be. So thank you for that. There are a couple things I need to divulge to council. One of the pieces that fits all three of the social, economic, and environmental circles is clearly what's going to happen to the Wonder Gardens. I've been working with David Piper, having conversations with him over the last year when he was ready to let the Wonder Gardens go, that we have some influence over what happens. I've had President Bradshaw and his staff out twice to go through the Wonder Gardens. I have an appointment tomorrow with the Vice President of Finance for the university to come out and tour the Wonder Gardens. The goals are the same, I think, for the Piper family and for this city and this community, and that is to protect what we have as a very unique asset for our grandkids. And unless we're on top of this and ahead of the curve on what may happen to that property, we're making a huge mistake. The university is interested in creating a Piper Family Botanical Garden, a university environmental research center, an ecological studies facility. Sits on the same body of water as the Marine Science Center. It's so much logic to this kind of a facility. It's a game changer. It's a face changer for the historic Bonita River District, the old Bonita. It's difficult times economically. The university doesn't have that kind of money, and the city doesn't have that kind of money. So I'm going to ask Carl publicly to help me figure out through the Economic Development Committee what we can start to do to find funds to create a private enterprise, a foundation of some sort, that at least we can get our foot in the door on being a serious contender. David and Dawn Piper and I had breakfast Saturday morning. They're very, very interested in making sure we can do the best for that piece of property. I asked that the city have the right of first refusal, and David said that probably wasn't possible, but that he would give us the courtesy of a call if he had a serious offer. So I certainly appreciate that help. It's a piece we really can't lose. It'd be wrong. Secondly, my friends at Bonita Springs Utilities, there's a business plan for a solar field on that property out there. I know it's sort of gotten dust on it recently, but it's important for this community that you folks not lose track of that, Mike and Mary and all of you. That's a potential with environmentally sensitive area that could certainly, in Councilman Ferreira's words, could be used to build a solar logic in this city. So I'd ask the BSU people to keep that in mind and keep working in that direction. Finally, I thank everybody for being here this morning. We're going to call for public comment before we clear this motion. And is there any public comment after this discussion? And Councilman Longcard, would you mind? Councilman Sims, yes.
Just wanted to end great leadership, wonderful leadership there with the Wonder Gardens. Do we have a sense of the asking price or what it might take?
David Piper has a realtor lined up, and that probably will be known in the next few days.
Okay. Thanks.
Okay.
Mayor,
Yes.
Vice Mayor, I certainly would be supportive in whatever the city needs to do to help acquire that piece of property. I think it's key to our data, and you're absolutely right about having a scientific approach there. It's where the marine and the freshwater.
Oh, yeah.
We've got something in the marine downstream with FGCU. I think it'd just be fantastic, and I know FGCU would do a professional and wonderful job there.
Yeah,
An environmentally sustainable job as well.
right. And I don't want to mislead council. I don't want the city particularly to own that piece of property. But I think the city's got to be a partner.
Yes.
I've also worked with 2 engineering firms to try to create a drawing, some sort of something that we can have in our hands to show people. And we're such early stages of this thing that I can't bring that forward at the time. But thank you, Councilwoman. Thank you very much.
Yeah, it's just been a key part of our city for so many years that, to see it, whatever might happen to it in the future, I don't want to imagine that it's got a beautiful trees, beautiful property right on the river. So whatever we can do.
When you recognize the Naples built a botanical garden with 10-foot trees, we have 100-year-old Florida growth on the river. We have an opportunity to do something very spectacular.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Deputy
Yes.
May I,
Councilwoman
since we are
Martin.
discussing, and I figure it is the appropriate time for all of us to say how we feel about that, and I agree 100%, and I thank you for taking the lead with that. It seems like we need to just tie that up and put a bow on it with the Vesser Labs, that there, with all of these students that have been out to the nature place and that have put in hours out there also. It's the perfect place for them to be. And like I had thought of immediately too, is that the FGCU has developed a new hospitality school, and that little piece of that property was a restaurant at one time, so that they could actually do that there too. So it's just makes a lot of sense. So I'd be very supportive to see something like that happen, and thank you.
Thank you. Well, and in addition, there's a museum there, which would fit nicely with that.
Yep.
Any other comments before we go to public comment?
Do we have a vote?
We have, I was going to wait to vote until we got through public comment.
Just about this in particular, about the application and what that would mean for Bonita Springs to have platinum. Well, not only, we currently are the best anyhow, but then everybody would know it. So, I mean, it's not only a great marketing tool, but new innovative companies, forward-thinking companies, we're talking about economic development. This also fits into an economic development piece, because when they see that the local government cares about the kind of things, about thinking forward, about saying, we're going to be here for 150 years, down the road, because we're going to have water, and we're going to have all these things, beautiful beaches, we're going to be a beautiful city. People are going to want to move their businesses here. I think this is very important for those kind of people that think ahead. So we want those kind of businesses that think ahead here, and they're going to find a government that thinks ahead. So this is very exciting.
Thank you. Thank you. Let's go to public comment.
We also have rooftops, not just BSU. We have
Who be you?
Richard Ferrera, again, for Spring Creek Village, Bonita Springs. I want to commend the council for, and the presentation, by the way, was great. It's, as someone mentioned, Webster's dictionary, sustainability is a prolonged maintenance and the future. And we got to start thinking about the future. We have two things going for us. One is Estero Bay. Very, very important to the environment is the maintain and sustainability of Estero Bay. The use of best management practices for further development. And by the way, it doesn't have to be shoreside. Stormwater runoff, getting into the bay, bringing fertilizers and other kinds of pollutants. City manager in Venice, Mr. LaValle, was the city manager in Newport, Rhode Island. They had to close the beaches so many times because of stormwater runoff. And they got a grant and used ultraviolet light over those storm drains. It doesn't kill the pollutant, it doesn't kill the fertilizers, obviously, but it does kill the bacteria. And they were able to sustain the tourist economic viability of Newport in Middletown by using the ultraviolet system. So that's something to think about in the future. Again, solar energy companies coming in using environmentally sensitive land and investing in solar energy, as Mr. McIntosh mentioned, is very important for the long-term sustainability of Bonita. And again, I want to thank the council, and I hope they vote positively and support Jenny and the Hill staff in getting us off the ground, at least getting the plans ready for the future. So when businesses come in, they're coming into a viable city, and a city that thinks out of the box, and a city that has a sustainable future. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman. Other public comment?
At forgot to mention, I believe you received copies of it, but I did receive a letter of support from Lee County that I wanted to read into the record real quickly. Dear Ms. Hagan, I understand you are presenting a sustainability strategy to the Bonita Springs City Council on Monday, April 22nd, 2013. I am sorry that I cannot attend in person, but would like to take this opportunity to express support as the city considers formalizing and enhancing existing efforts towards becoming a more sustainable city. Given the work Bonita Springs is already doing to promote sustainability, establishing methods to evaluate and quantify those efforts is an excellent next step. In our efforts to understand the public's priorities for the future of our community, sustainability has been identified as a critical issue time and time again. Lee County appreciates the partnership Bonita Springs has shown in our sustainability efforts and strongly supports your goals to promote sustainability in the city. Sincerely yours, Tessa Lesage, Sustainability Program Manager, Lee County.
Thank you, Jen. We have a motion and a second on the dais. Yes, Council.
Before we go ahead and vote, does that motion include having Jen as the project coordinator?
It's your motion.
I would add that if that's, something we'd like to vote on, for sure. We'll have a separate one, Mayor. I just keep calling
I think
it
I'd
that.
prefer to leave that up to city staff to determine who that is.
That's probably more appropriate, but I can just tell you it's going to be Jennifer anyway. So if you want to vote on it, that's fine.
Okay.
Knowing in your heart, then, we won't make that formal in the motion, just knowing in your heart that
Could
will
we
be the
have the
case.
motion reread or read to the council so we know what we're voting on?
Basically, it was just a motion to move forward with the plan.
Okay.
That's for the Florida Green Building
Right.
Coalition certification process.
Okay.
Jennifer, all good with you? Okay.
Good.
Sorry.
No, that's fine. That's fine. Roll call, please.
Councilwoman Martin?
Aye.
Councilman Slackton?
Aye.
Councilman Simmons?
Aye.
Councilwoman Simons?
Aye.
Councilman Longcart?
Aye.
Deputy Mayor McIntosh?
Aye. Thank you. Any other questions? Meeting's adjourned.